The Agweek Market Wrap is sponsored by Gateway Building Systems.
Welcome to the Agweek Market Wrap, brought to you by Gateway Building Systems. I'm Randy Koenen with the Red River Farm Network. We're joined by Randy Martinson of Martinson Ag Risk Management. Randy, kind of a volatile week here, starting with that WASDE report on Monday.
No, that's right. I mean, yeah, we started the markets off with a bang. That's for sure. The report, of course, come in much different than what was anticipated by the trade, especially for the soybeans. Kind of close to what expectations were for corn. So a little more lackluster in the corn and especially in the wheat market, but that surprise in the soybean sent soybeans sharply higher, which spilled over to help support the rest of the complex and really kind of set the tone for the week. But then, I think once we got the export sales numbers known, then we kind of went back into trading a little bit more of the current activities, which is harvest.
Yeah, that and economic situation too. I think a little bit of risk off trading too, the way it seemed.
Oh, that's right. I mean, you looked at what with the CPI number coming out higher than expected, sent the dollar sharply higher after trading lower earlier in the session, and the Dow sharply lower after it was higher. So, and that came in to kind of sting the market here a little bit this week as well. And that kind of kept some lingering concerns into the market for the rest of the week.
The traders, as they're looking at this market here right now, do they just kind of, with the harvest coming up and with the economic concerns, is it easier for them just to take money off the table and go to the sidelines and wait and see?
It is. I mean, that is the easy route right now, and especially when you look at some of the money might be coming out of the commodities and going into the stock market too, because now they're buying a lot of stocks at much cheaper levels too. So we're seeing a little bit of that, but I think the big part is that they're right now we're kind of don't really know where to expect the yields to come in. We've got USDA's estimates that are coming out. We've been hearing all growing season how good the crop was in Illinois. So right now, I think a lot of the trade is going to wait to see where the first harvested yields start to come into play, and then they're going to start betting the market movement off that.
Right. Haven't seen much demand though either, have we?
We haven't, and that's, we finally got to see our export sales numbers, for the last, 4 weeks. We got that data dump on Thursday. A little bit disappointing, actually. I mean, soybeans we knew were good because we saw some of those bigger sales reported. But, when you look at it for corn, our exports are running 50% of where they were last year. Ethanol demand hasn't been that good. We've been seeing lower ethanol production estimates, so it's a little questionable about where our corn demand is going to be. And with these higher prices, you can understand a little bit of a pullback.
Do we look at dollar value then with that demand reduction here right now?
Some of it could be tied to the dollar, and I think, there's other aspects that are coming into play. With wheat, not really sure who's getting a lot of those sales. Russia's struggling moving some product as well. A lot of it probably coming more out of Canada and out of Australia. Looking at it for corn, right now there is some South American corn that's being filled in to fill the needs, but there's not a lot of demand on corn. On the soybean side, Argentina's filling the need as they need to try to clear out some bushels. The government needs some money, so they're willing to offer a little bit of an incentive for farmers to sell, and they're exporting the whole beans, which normally they export meal and oil. But right now, I think they're kind of the market in the soybean, so it's kind of leaving us out short term here on the export side of things.
Well, that's the thing too with that Argentine area. Even their shipping channels, with as dry as it is down there, are having some struggles, but they're still able to get the beans out.
They are. You're right. I mean, and that's, Europe is seeing the same issues, where they're starting to see some trouble with being able to ship a lot of barges on the river because of the low water levels. They're taking a lot more boats and a lot less product when they're moving right now.
Speaking of Argentina too, extremely dry down there. They need rain before they can even start planting, so they'll probably push off a little bit.
Yeah, they will. And they're also talk right now about some abandonment of wheat acres because of how dry it is. Now we'll see if they get rain. Some of those might switch over and go into soybeans, but they normally will plant their wheat, then they'll go in and start planting some of the corn, and then they'll go and plant soybeans and harvest the wheat and plant corn or soybeans on that again. So right now they're looking pretty tough right now as far as their weather forecasts, and it looks like their production estimates could start to show that.
What's the weather been like in Brazil? I mean, they're expecting a huge acreage increase there.
they're a little bit on the dry side as well. They've been a little slow in getting their planting going. I report this morning, I was on a conference call with some guys, and they were saying they were hoping that Brazil would have about 10% of their beans planted by that first part of October. That's kind of their goal. They're kind of just waiting for the rains to come in, and then they'll get more aggressive. But right now, it is causing a problem with slow planting.
Sure. Saw a pretty choppy market here to end the week. We started with the move on after the WASDE report Monday, and then we kind of pulled back the entire week. Today was a little different. It was kind of an odd trading day. It seemed like it almost seemed like a low volume day, but I don't think it was.
Well, you're right, and wheat led it. I mean, that was the other part, is that wheat was actually the leader, which corn latched on and followed wheat up to the higher side. I think right now, there's the U.S. stocks and world stocks of wheat are tight. We're not seeing a lot of exports, but there is a little concerns about whether Ukraine is going to get much of a crop planted, and we need to buy a little bit more winter wheat acres. It's dry down in the southern plains. We saw some drought expansion in the weekly drought monitor map. They did pick up some rains in Kansas over the weekend, so they're trying to encourage planting of wheat, and I think that's what helps support the winter wheat contracts today. Spring wheat, we got some rain in the forecast, and we still have a ways to go before we're done with wheat harvest.
Well, that's the thing. We'll know that come Monday again. This with the next crop progress report with how Minnesota, North Dakota, the northern plains, how we're doing with that wheat harvest. How about Canada? You hearing anything up there?
It's been slow moving with their harvest. They're kind of like the northern tier. They got their crop planted a little bit late, and there is some activity, of course, in the western regions. But right now, not a lot of activity going on in the Manitoba, Saskatchewan area. The next week we'll see a lot more take place. But they've had some frost, they've had some issues. It's going to be interesting. Now our days, of course, they're next week. We got a couple of warm days, then it's going to be cool, and that's going to make for some pretty short wheat harvesting days.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned some of the exports, or we had talked about a little bit. Japan did come in and buy some U.S. wheat.
They did. They split their tender with, I believe it was with Australia or Canada. Canada, I think it was. They bought 2/3 of their needs from Canada, 1/3 from the U.S., and it's kind of their weekly tender. Japan always comes in and buys every week or every 10 days, and it has been a little less U.S. wheat and a little bit more of Canada's or Australia's.
Yeah, right. Is that just dollar difference between the U.S. currency and probably Canada's currency?
And what they need. They're buying some of the spring wheat from the U.S. They're looking at getting the winter wheats from Australia, and of course Canada's the spring wheat as well.
Sure, freight rates making the difference too. Well, not so much out of Canada, I guess, but it does make a difference from elsewhere.
Most definitely it does. I mean, that's another one that's been driving the market here a little. The export side of things is what the freight rates are.
Sure. Randy, do we need to touch on livestock markets here at all?
They were a little bit quiet here this week, a little bit disappointing. We were hoping to see a little bit better cash trade, but we finished basically steady in the live cattle market. They're a little bit concerned about the economy as well. Feeder cattle took a little bit of a lower turn, even though corn finished steady to a little lower this week. We're looking at supply starting to become a little more available, so that kind of pressured the cattle too.
Sure. Anything else we need to be talking about?
Well, right now, big thing is just watching. Weather will start to be a little bit important again, only because of harvest. Right now, it looks like the Corn Belt is looking for 2 weeks of almost ideal conditions for harvest progress. I think that's going to drive the market.
All right. Thanks, Randy. Randy Martinson, president of Martinson Ag Risk Management. For markets and market analysis throughout the week, listen to your local Red River Farm Network radio station or visit rrfn.com. The Agweek Market Wrap, sponsored by Gateway Building Systems.